Yes, I am. Good morning and grand rising, everybody. I really wish I was there with you, but this is as close as we can get right now. So I will take what I can get, and I hope that you do the same as well. So, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. I think it's really fitting that we recognize the holidays between Christmas, the nature celebration of Yule. The day after Christmas this year is when Hanukkah begins, as well as Kwanzaa, which is kind of later in the season, which is kind of cool. It goes off the Hebrew calendar instead of the Gregorian calendar. And so, it's fitting for us here in Centers for Spiritual Living to recognize multiple faiths because that's what Ernest Holmes did when he created this philosophy known as the science of mind. So it's no coincidence that we celebrate the light, that we call this the season of light when we get into the darkness of winter. It's that reminder. It all ties together our nature, the nature of our collective humanity, and then just the nature of nature itself, Mother Nature, that we have all of these cycles. And so we develop rich celebrations and rituals in order to honor it and to also work with it and let it work for us. So the first thing I want to start with is I'm just going to point out how a few different faiths have acknowledged the light. So if I could ask Cassie to advance to the first slide. We have 4 slides that I'm going to use here at the beginning. And so on this very first one, okay, we'll advance one more to an image. This comes from the book of John. And so in Christianity, Jesus is referred to as the light of the world. And in the book of John, it says, "In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." And then if we can advance, so from Judaism and Christianity, this is from the Old Testament. It says, "A candle of God is the soul of man," from Proverbs. And then on the next slide, Gautama Buddha reminds us that if you light a lamp for someone else, it will also brighten your own path. And then the final one that I was going to honor today is from Hinduism on the next slide. From the Bhagavad Gita, it says, "He who dwells in the heart of all beings, the self, is the source of all light." That self with the capital S, that reminds us that is, it's the Atman is what it's called in Hinduism. That is the divine that is within the individuals. So we have our individual self with a little s, and that's Chris. That's this physical body that's here to navigate and experience this world. But then we have the large S or capital S, self, that is bigger. That is the divine. It's the same spark of life that's within me, that's within everybody. And that's what we're, as we step into this grand rising for the global theme, we are reminded that we are the light. We have the light. There's nothing necessarily to seek because it's already there within us. And so in this month, it's a perfect time. In the Northern Hemisphere, we just had our winter solstice yesterday, which is the day that has the least amount of sunlight of any day of the year. And at the same time, when we're in that darkness and remembering to celebrate the light, the amount of light that we experience is always up to us. It's always within. And so, we all of these different religions and faiths, they have different celebrations that during the darkest times of the year, that we, through the symbology of candles, of lights on trees, lights on houses, all of this, it's not just because it's pretty. It's a reminder of our spiritual nature, of our true nature, that spark of life, that is light, is within. So the light of our being is the same light of the being that was Jesus, the Christ consciousness. And so remembering and inviting all of us that the light is what has the power to overcome the darkness. When we step into a dark room and you turn on the light, it's not that the darkness disappeared or went anywhere. It's just the darkness isn't a thing of its own. It is simply the absence of light. And so anytime that you have light and dark together, the light is always going to be triumphant. You can't take a thing of darkness, which is nothingness, no thingness, and place it together with light and dim it. Only objects, only different blocks can block the light. And so this is what we're being called to remember when it's a little darker outside, when the days are shorter, and people sometimes start to feel the doldrums a little bit, the seasonal affective disorder. It's normal for us to kind of want to hunker down a little. It's the time where the trees are resting, the grass, everything goes in dormant mode, and it adapts to that season of non-light. And it's the reminder, nature reminding us that when in our physical reality, yes, when it gets a little colder and a little darker, it's important for us to buoy ourselves and see the light within. And it's also symbolic of when we're feeling the darkness within, when sometimes life can overwhelm us and the challenges that come up can feel like a darkness kind of descending upon us. But just like that darkness in the room, that light instantly dissipates that darkness. That same darkness that we can feel within, we have the power to remind ourselves of the light of which we are and to draw upon it. And so I'm going to talk about just a couple different things. Since prehistoric times, human beings, we have celebrated the light. I go all the way back to shamanism, when the days of sitting around the fire and holding ceremonies. The light symbolizes overcoming challenges, overcoming darknesses. We see this in one of the oldest religions. It might possibly be the oldest organized religion in the world, which is Zoroastrianism, which is, interestingly enough, a lot of the practices of Christianity and of celebrating Jesus's birth and the enlightenment of Jesus comes from Zoroastrianism, that the tradition of bringing a tree inside the house and placing gifts underneath it. And then later, when we started adding lights to the tree, it's grown and used in so many different ways that all of these traditions that remind us of the light are reminding us that the light always returns. The Taoists, when they talk about the energy of darkness, they call it's the yin of the yin yang, or yin yang, however you like to say it. But the energy of the darkness is important to recognize the energy of the lightness. The darkness is not something to fear, it's something that we incorporate, something that we can balance with the light in order to understand our true nature and to know where we are coming from. And so with the yin yang, with the passing of the seasons and celebrating the light during the darkness, we're reminded that the light always returns. So no matter where we're at in our individual lives, no matter what is going on in our collective lives, when we find ourselves in moments where we're feeling the darkness or the sadness, we know, just as the sun will come up in the morning, that the spring will follow the fall, or the spring will follow the winter. We know that it is always coming. But it's easy to forget that when you're in the depths of, I say the darkness, but it's, like thinking of it as like a hibernation. The darkness, the quiet, it's a time to reflect, which is what this whole season is. It's a time to remind us to reflect over the whole year of leaning towards this grand rising. What has transpired this year? Imagine all the things that you have experienced. And I recently, I sent out an email yesterday afternoon. I don't know who's read it yet, but it listed several of the things that the center has accomplished this year. And it's um, it's really amazing the amount of things that if you can sit and reflect in your own life, I bet you would have the same experience. If you look back at the little things, or I use air quotes, the little things, if you look back over the little things, you've done a lot more than you might realize. Like the center is amazing. And when we reflected during the darkness, we're seeing the light, we're seeing it in action, we're seeing how spirit shows up as us, and just reminding that in the coldness, I can put on a blanket. In the darkness, I can light a candle. And the same ideas metaphorically exist within us. So the second point that I want to bring us to, so the light always returns. We remember that. And then the second part is to revel and sit in awe of the light a little bit. You know, mystics of the ages, they experience a sense of light within themselves as they expand their consciousness. And that's where we see, you know, light is used in temples, churches, mosques, synagogues, throughout the world's different spiritual traditions. And symbolically, when you step into, you know, I was raised in Catholicism, and there's always one candle burning within the church, at least one candle that is eternal. It represents the eternal flame, which is that eternal light that's within. In most major religions, when you step into one of these holy places, or places that are designated for the practice of individual religion, you'll find something that represents that eternal flame. And we too have that same flame burning within us when we make our transition and move on to that next place. And you'll hear people say, you know, you could see that moment that the light left his body. The light can leave this physical body, but that light that leaves, that is the essence that we are. So the more that we can reflect, the more that we can look within and remind ourselves of our own individual divine nature, the more we are lifted up to shine that light. When we shine the light, like the Buddhist quote said, when you shine the light on the path, when you simply by being yourself, your true self, your genuine and authentic self, you are shining your light, and you are lighting the path of others as well as yourself. And so that is one of the many reasons why during this holiday season we celebrate the lights. I'm so looking forward to Christmas Eve, the celebration and ceremony that's going to take place at CSL Cape Coral. So I really hope everybody's able to make it. I won't be there in person, but I will be watching either online or seeing the replay, depending on how our dinner falls out here. But it's a wonderful, wonderful ceremony, and it recognizes that light. And the more times that we sit back and just remind ourselves of our deeper nature, remind ourselves that there is something that we can draw upon simply with our consciousness, by imagining the light within, meditating and contemplating that light within, you create that field within you. And we're not drawing in something new. It's already there. It's always been there. But sometimes we forget. And so while darkness cannot overcome light, we can block out that light. We have different methods of doing that. We let the world become overwhelming to us, or we let situations, challenges overwhelm us, and it's easy to forget that if we can step back in that big picture of all that exists, everything is okay. Everything is exactly how it's supposed to be. We are here in this world, and we are each on our own individual, unique path. And so when we're able to create a little bit of a separation, that all that stuff that's happening out there in the world, yes, there's wonderful things that I can look at, that I can, go and witness, shows or parties, celebrations. There's so many wonderful things that I can see and celebrate and really love and say, yes, this is what life's all about. And there's also all these other times that are so hard, that make life really challenging sometimes. And we want to, or at least I myself sometimes, want to wish that away. I don't want to be in this anymore. But it is all part of the whole thing. And so when I can separate myself and remind myself that this world is the stage, everything that is happening out there is all for me. And everything that's happening out there is all for you. You remember, I often talk about that center of the universe idea. No matter who you are, or where you are, in an infinite universe, at a single point of consciousness, which I have within me, which you have within you, at that single point of consciousness, you literally are the center of the universe. And so the most important thing to do is to maintain yourself, to maintain your balance, equilibrium, and your mind on that infinite spark of life. So when no matter what's going on in this world, we can remind ourselves like, yeah, this is life. This is the physical world, and things can hurt my physical body. Things can take me out of this world. Things can make me feel sad. Things can hurt my feelings. Things can, severely offend me, or all kinds of awful things that can happen in this world. But it's all part of that show, part of that, the world's a stage idea. It's all part of our experience. But behind it all is that light, and that will always continue on, and nothing can ever harm that. And so we can celebrate in this world together. So Ernest Holmes talked about spiritual mind treatment and affirmative prayer. He said that if we could see that prayer, you would see it as a path of light. And so when we celebrate that external light, whether it's the solstice, the birth of Jesus, the Hanukkah lights, or any external lights, we're really celebrating that light that is already within. And I invite us and encourage us to, as we move forward through these next few days leading up to Christmas, every time that you see a light, remind yourself, say, that light that I see out there that's so pretty, those lights on that house that are so pretty, it is the same light that I have within myself. And when we draw upon it, it removes the confusion, it removes the darkness. There really is a place of calm inner knowing. And so I want to ask Cassie or somebody to advance the next slide, if you would, please. No, I need to find it so I can read from it. So this is a quote from Ernest Holmes, and I've got it split up in two different places. So I'm going to read the first one for anybody that's not able to see it. It says, "The secret place of the Most High is a place of light, of illumination, of poise and assurance." So I wanted that quote first about the secret place of the Most High, which is that place within, is a place of light, illumination. And then I'm going to share the whole quote. This came, I don't know what reference it came from, other than I found it on the Spiritual Passages website. So I thought that I would mention that in case anybody's not familiar with the Spiritual Passages website. Now you will be. It is Scott Aubrey, Reverend Scott Aubrey, who created that, and it's just a wonderful database to get all sorts of quotes, informations, really wonderful. It's called Spiritual Passages if you need another reference. So if I can go to that last slide, I'm going to read the whole quote that came from Ernest Holmes. And he said, "The secret place of the Most High is at the center of our own being, where in the silence we wait on the Spirit. There is no confusion in the secret place. None can enter it for us. None can prohibit its entrance to us. The door is always open, the gate ever ajar. The secret place of the Most High is a place of light, of illumination, of poise and assurance." And I don't know about you, but for me, that is a solid reminder that we have what we need. We always have what we need in that big picture. We are divine, illumined beings, and when we walk together and we celebrate together, that light takes on an exponential growing. It's a synergistic effect. So no matter how dark our lives have been or may currently be, the darkness that exists will always pass. Light will always return. And developing a faith in that knowing is a tool to help carry us through those times. So when we are experiencing lack, limitation, suffering, when we experience these things, it's important to remind us that this too shall pass. I am an infinite divine being, just as the light of the world that Jesus Christ showed us, that kingdom of heaven is within us. And when we focus on that, everything else works itself out. And so this season of light, I want to encourage us all to take every reminder that we can, every moment that we can, to reflect, to remind ourselves that the light's within us, and that as I shine my light, as I focus on my light, that light illuminates those around us, and it works together in ways that it's truly magical. And the other thing is, depending on where you are, we all have our own individual roles. And remember, like, your focus is primarily on you. The number one thing to do when we are, well, anytime when we're feeling stressed or anxious in the world, is to remember, like, it's our responsibility to focus on ourselves, to keep ourselves at that higher vibration. That's when we let ourselves wallow in fear or anxiety, wallowing in just the challenges that exist in this world. If we get caught up in the doom scrolling, the feeds of the news that want to get our attention, and they use scary things to do that. Anytime that we find ourselves getting caught up in that, it's our responsibility to remind ourselves. And maybe it means removing those external stimuli that cause us to feel more distress, and find the things to focus on that lift us up. And when we do that, we are the light, and we continue to spread that light. And if we want to rise to our grandest vision of what we can be collectively and individually, we remind ourselves of the cycle, and then we get ourselves into that place of light. And when I am in my place and I'm charged up, it's my joy to go out into the world and to be that for others. And as those cycles shift and turn, at some point when I am there in my darkness, that's when we can look to others to help share the light with us. So sometimes we give the light, and sometimes we borrow the light. And that, to me, is what this season of giving is all about. So let's go ahead and take this within, if you would, and just sit back and reflect and imagine within. However you see your mind's eye, can you imagine that you are filled with light at this very moment? And focusing on that light that is so bright, that is here within us, that it shows up in various ways. It is the light within that inspires the music to play. And just as the mystics talk about illumination and experience more and more light within, so do we when we draw our attention to it. When we focus on the love, the light, the qualities of sharing, of goodness, of compassion, we are celebrating spirit itself. We are celebrating the essence of what we are, that I am one with all of this universe, that we are all one, that each and every individual hearing these words is the same one. There is no separation. It is the same life force that connects and binds us all, and it is that same life force that will always carry us to higher and higher vistas. So when we drop the ideas of lack, of conflict and recognize that we are all in this together, that my individual play is working out in magnificent ways, that I can draw the light, I focus on the light, and the light carries me throughout this month, throughout this year, and into higher vistas, that we can continue to evolve as human beings, recognizing everyone is a divine light being. Everyone makes mistakes, and everyone experiences a triumph at some point. Whether it's the entering of this physical world, the leaving of this physical world, or the many times that fill the space in between, we are infinite light beings, and may we always be carried and reminded that the strength and the love and the compassion is within us all. So I wish everyone a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, however you like to celebrate light in your own individual life, and may that light carry you, bless you, comfort you, enlighten you, and bring that faith that we are all on the same infinite journey with the same destination of eternal wellness. So in gratitude for it all, and gratitude for each and every individual that is taking their life seriously, that is taking their life playfully, that is taking their life lovingly, I say thank you for it all, because that is how we celebrate together. And we affirm that by saying, and so it is.